Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. We are back at the Combine. It is Tuesday, I think. No, Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. That's what happens when you're in Indianapolis. You lose track of the days. So we are here. We had the first day of player availability. We will have some video of Abdul Carter, Penn State standout edge rusher, in the mix for the Giants. Told me that he has already met with the Giants here at the Combine. So we'll see what happens with the quarterbacks and if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter are there, if the Giants can pull the trigger on that. A couple things. Today, we have our interview with Emory Hunt, CBS Sports football game plan, talking all things draft and the Giants. I think you'll enjoy that. But first up, before I swing it to the Abdul Carter sound and video, let's talk quarterbacks again, where the Giants are. I have a story posted on NorthJersey.com. Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State, is meeting with the Giants. He will have a meeting with the Giants. I would imagine Emory Hunt, the other running back from North Carolina, will meet with the Giants. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the running back myth is dead, that it's no longer running backs are washed and not worth the money, not worth the price, not worth the value? A year after the Giants said goodbye to Saquon Barkley, he goes on and has an epic season, goes to Philly, and we all know all the fallout from that. Now, a year later, would the Giants legitimately take the top running back off the board? Well, I'll say this. Ashton Jeanty and Emory Hunt, you want to compare and contrast, meet with them. They haven't met with them yet. But the idea is, if you're sitting there in the second round, the 34th overall pick, and one of those running backs is sitting there, you may think of bringing that player in to compare with Tyrone Tracy. So, again, all happens what happens in free agency, but that was a little bit of news there. And this on Aaron Rodgers. I know there's a report out there from Pro Football Talk that Aaron Rodgers reached out to the Giants. From what I've been told, from my sources inside the building at the Giants, they are not saying that they are against anything. They are keeping every chair available in this game of musical chairs. The music is playing, so they will not say whether or not Aaron Rodgers is an option or isn't an option. But I've been told they have not reached out to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has not reached out to the Giants. That has not happened yet. Whether that happens remains to be seen. I would imagine at some point they have a conversation, but I think all focus right now, verbally and publicly, is on Matthew Stafford and the Rams. We'll see how that goes, and we'll have more on that as the week continues. But like I said, the Giants have not reached out to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers has not reached out to the Giants. Has there been an intermediary at some point mentioned maybe a possible interest? Hey, Aaron might stay in New Jersey if you guys are interested. That remains to be seen. I don't have that information, but I can tell you that the Giants have not reached out to Aaron Rodgers or had any conversations with Aaron Rodgers as of today. So without further ado, let's get to Abdul Carter from Penn State. Legitimate option for the Giants at number 3, depending on what happens in free agency, what happens with the quarterbacks. Here's Mr. Carter from Penn State.
I think I bring energy, effort, versatility, and I feel like when the biggest moments come around, that's why I play at my best.
Could you put like a number percentage to your
Yeah, probably about 90% right now, but these next couple months, this next month, I feel like is where I really get to start getting close to 100.
Hey, Abdul, everyone comes here looking for a franchise quarterback, it feels like. What do you think? It seems like everyone comes here looking for a franchise quarterback. What do you think of the concept of a franchise edge rusher?
Yeah, I feel like you definitely need a franchise edge rusher. If you look at all the great teams that won Super Bowls, that you have that one standout great defensive player, and I feel like I'm that.
What does a franchise edge rusher look like?
The one that comes to mind when I first think of one is Von Miller. Oh yeah, it was dope. I really just got to enjoy my last year, really being a fan. Being from Philly, born and raised, supporting the Eagles really my whole life. Got to take my dad to the Super Bowl, just enjoying being a fan one last year. And so wherever team drafts me, I'm loyal to that team.
I don't know what it's going to be like at some point in your career to face that.
They're going to get my best on. Say it again. Yeah, whatever team I'm on, whatever team I play, they get my best. Yeah, my goal is to come in and be the guy. If I go to a team that already got established, I want to earn my spot anyway, so I want to come in and compete right away.
Speaking of Philly,
So there was Abdul Carter and everything he had at the podium. Very interesting with comparisons to Micah Parsons. Obviously, the Giants passed on Micah Parsons by trading away from their pick back in 2021. They ended up trading back and drafted Kadarius Toney. So not only did the Eagles jump the Giants for Devontae Smith that year with the help of the Cowboys, then the Giants decided to trade back and pick Kadarius Toney, allowing the Cowboys to take Micah Parsons. So can the Giants right or wrong in their history and get a guy who's been compared to Micah in that situation? Intriguing player, intriguing prospect. Abdul Carter will not participate in workouts here at the Combine because of a shoulder injury that he suffered against Boise in the playoffs. But very good player, arguably the best pass rusher on the board. We'll see how that plays out for the Giants. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll try to get some more videos later on. Now let's go to my interview with Emory Hunt, CBS Sports, and Football Game Plan. He's been around the New Jersey scene for a long time. Love talking to Emory. Emory brings a different flair, a different flavor to scouting. So we talk draft, we talk Giants. Here's my interview with Emory. I hope you enjoy it. All right, we're here at Radio Row at the Combine, or it's really become Podcast Row here at the Combine in Indianapolis. My guy, Emory Hunt, Football Game Plan, the CBS Sports. It's draft season, and it's Emory's season. How you doing, pal?
Doing fine, Art. Always a pleasure, man. It's funny because we usually out sweating, in training camp, but I went really confines of Indy here talking Combine.
No doubt, no doubt. What's your goal when you come to the Combine in your role with CBS and also with Football Game Plan? What you want to do? I mean, you've been doing it for months. You've been evaluating for years in some prospects. What's your sense when you come here?
Really just to get a lay of the land in terms of what prospects are where they are mentally in terms of the football IQ, because I love asking football-related questions to these prospects, and that's where you get a good sense of how dedicated they are to the sport, how much they love football. It's a thinking man's game. We all read that book, by Paul Zimmerman, and it's a unique spot for these guys to really show how much they care about the craft. So I truly come to the Combine not for the workouts, not for the testing, maybe a little bit for the shrimp cocktail, but also mostly for the interview and ask these questions of these players.
What's funny is that, everybody wants to talk evaluation, but we never truly appreciate it. In the league, every team has their own evaluation process. They have their own decisions, and we don't get to see everybody's boards.
Right.
When it's somebody like you who evaluates and puts your boards out there, I mean, you're basically on display for everyone to see. They can judge you year in, year out. Teams are only judged by the players that they draft or sign or whatever. For you, how has that evolved over the last couple of years? And because you've done it a long time, started out essentially as a hobby and it just grew into something more. But from your perspective, because you've never been somebody who follows the same path, just because some other guy puts out an evaluation process that you go back and look at your grades and say, this is how I should see things. How long did it take you to become that as somebody who wants to evaluate in this business, but also kind of gets a feel for how this stuff has to go on?
Yeah, Art, that's a great question. And it's really tied into why you got into the business or why you started whatever site or whatever podcast, whatever it is that you wanted to do. You did it because you wanted to have a voice. And I remember when I first started Football Game Plan in 07, and we were just doing like game previews, because we didn't start doing the draft stuff until 2008-ish or 9-ish, to the site. We were doing like mock drafts, but we were doing like, game previews, and it was like, man, I remember the first ones I put out was kind of like, based on what I heard and what I thought people would want to read. Yeah, even though I thought differently, I don't want to sound too crazy, because then they're going to think I'm just crazy. But then it's like, why would you start something to sound like somebody else? And so I've always had that from that point on, and that's just carried me throughout. And over the course of time, you realize, like, they're the people you came up under, or the people you went to school with or played with or whatever. They see the same things you see, so your eye is not different than theirs. They just have a better job. You know what I'm saying? They just have a bigger profile, right? So it's like, it's not that you don't know because you're not a part of a team. So you have that mindset. And I was just like, let me just continue to say what I believe, right, wrong, or indifferent, and let the chips fall with me. And people respect the fact that I could be out there saying that, if this player is my QB1 and he ends up not getting drafted or just not playing well, or this guy is my QB40 and I prove to be right. But you got to be willing to be, out there. And I always say this is a quote I always use: I'd rather be wrong by myself than wrong in a group, because at least it shows that I'm thinking, I'm seeing things my way, and I'm putting out there, and you let the fans, judge you for it. And at the end of the day, they like that consistency to hear. At least I know I'm going to get Emory's voice on this particular player.
Right, and you're not doing these things because you think, oh, well, I'm going to get a little bit more attention because, I'm not out in the front and I'm not on SportsCenter every day,
right.
So let me get attention by putting this out there. That's not you. I mean, I know you have, like you said, this started with Football Game Plan, so this isn't one of those things where it's like, let me see how I can make a name for myself by saying something so outlandish that somebody might be interested in. Now, that takes us to what I consider, I can't remember any more polarizing a prospect that has come in here that has had the kind of production that Shedeur Sanders has had in his career. And I think back to when I talked to you and I talked to a bunch of guys, Dane and Jordan, back when I did the Giants quarterbacks thing back in December. And you told me stories about how you started scouting Shedeur back when he was at Jackson State. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because you are one of the few guys who has Shedeur at the top. You believe, right? Shedeur is your QB1. So how did you get there? And has the hype, hoopla, debate, whatever you want to call it, caused you to kind of look back and say, all right, am I as sold as I was previously?
But that's another great question, because it kind of ties into why you do what you do, right? And if you put the work in, and this is the end result, this is the end result. You can't go back and adjust because you hear somebody saying something differently. Hey, I trust what I did to put the work in. So going back to Jackson State, it was like, let me see how this guy plays out, because the spring season, Dion and his team, they were 3-2. I remember they started out 3-0, and everybody was, oh wow, and then they got blown out
because it was the spring season back with COVID, right?
And so Shedeur wasn't out there, and then they ended up going like I think 3-4, 3-3 that spring. And I remember Coach Prime said, "This team you saw here in the spring will be the team you see in the fall," and he knew what he had coming down the pipe. And so Shedeur steps on the field. I had not seen Shedeur play high school football. I didn't know what to expect. And then he gets out there and he's playing really well. He's not making mistakes. He's safe with the football. He's getting the ball out. And okay, he's playing. He's safe. He's conservative. Then about 2 or 3 games in, I'm like, wow, he's actually making great decisions with the ball. And I was just shocked at like how savvy he was, how calm he was. And they're winning these games because of him. And then next thing you know, he just continued to build on that. Then his confidence grew. And you start to see him play outside of the structure, make plays off script, breaking. I remember there was one play in particular, his freshman season against Bethune-Cookman, where he gets outside the pocket, should have been sacked like 3 times, stepped out of a tackle, and fired a dart back across the field into the end zone on target for a touchdown. It's like those type of plays like this, he's playing great for the neck up. So then the next year when they got Travis Hunter, it was just on 10, because now he had a guy that can go make plays for him. And so you've seen him play that way, and I'm glad he got the transfer to Colorado, because I feel like for him and or Cam Ward, had they stuck at the FCS school, people would have used that as a big reason why you shouldn't take these. They played at FCS schools, right? But they go play at Power 4 programs. He goes to Colorado. They start out like gangbusters. It followed the same script as it did in Jackson State. Started out like gangbusters, then they got worn down, and then the next year he came out and just played lights out. But what you always notice about him, he didn't turn the ball over. He always made great decisions in terms of the accuracy, the anticipation, timing. It's just the fact that when you are that type of guy, you want to. That's why I compare to Burrow, because same things. They think they can make every play. They hold the ball too long. They take sacks. What's going to help him as a pro? They don't run the ball. He won't throw 45 times a game. So just cutting that in half eliminates half those sacks that he took himself and puts more positive plays on the field.
Do you think NFL scouts and scouting community or GMs or whomever, coaches, are closer to your evaluation of Shedeur, of the people who criticize Shedeur for what he isn't? Or do you just look at it and say, you know what, everybody is going to have their own evaluation, and all it takes is one to prove whether or not he can play and be the player that he can be?
I will say this. Everyone that I've spoken with that is in the league have my side of things in terms of Shedeur Sanders. In terms of I don't know where all this is coming from. I don't know why this, because again, I've always asked this, and this is me talking. So I would always say, do we even know his girlfriend's name? Do we know what kind of drink he likes? Do we know what clubs he got? We don't know nothing about Shedeur Sanders. All we know about Shedeur is him on the football field. So where all this other stuff is coming from really doesn't make sense. It really is coming from folks' innate disdain for Coach Prime. So it's never about Shedeur, because he's a great kid off the field and on the field. He plays if we're talking about Shedeur Sanders having 21 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, 60% completion percentage at 6.7 yards an attempt, we're like, okay, yeah, maybe it's because of his name. We're trying to elevate it. But this dude has left college football with the highest completion percentage in college football history. So this is back since 1869, Rutgers Princeton. From that point to now, he is the highest in history. And these are downfield throws. It's not all bubble screens. And so he has done significantly well at Jackson State. And Colorado success leaves clues, and we've seen him be successful every year. So a lot of scouts are locked in with what I'm saying, and what we're hearing from the media is all based off media driven and also fan. It's become the conversation when that's not really what everybody's talking about.
The funny thing is that, there's this idea that it's the Coach Prime effect. The idea of that will teams in the NFL be hesitant to take Shedeur and put him in a situation where he may fail or they may fail around him. And then come Sunday or Monday, Coach Prime decides that he's going to go on a TV show or on a podcast or at his press conferences at Colorado and put a team on blast. The idea of, it's a circus, it's this, it's that. Who needs Deion Sanders talking about it? What do you make of the whole Prime effect? Do you hear when you're talking to teams? I've asked a couple guys this, and I just think it's fascinating because it pops up in fans on social media, and you start seeing the media pick up on it in certain circles. I'm curious from your dealings, have you heard that from teams? Do you think, and New York, do you think that plays in New York? Or at this point, my opinion, everybody has an entourage, a family behind them, someone who's going to spout off. I personally would rather have Deion, if he's in front of the cameras, saying what he feels, rather than the people who go underground and really undermine coaches and executives the way we all know it happens in the NFL nowadays.
I'm smiling, Art, because let's say his name was Shedeur Hunt, and he goes out there and the team around Shedeur Hunt is failing him. What's to say Art Stapleton doesn't get up on, a network and blast the team for? It's the same thing, right? It's essentially the same thing. What's stopping? We see it on the other side of town with a team that wears green and white, where everyone in national media takes pot shots on them after they lose a game on TV, right? So it happens regardless if you have a Shedeur Sanders or anybody.
Giants have joined that company too. Let's be honest.
Right.
After Hard Knocks last year,
Everybody's
been full season on Joe Shane since it happened.
Right. So that is without Shedeur Sanders on the roster, right? So it's going to happen regardless. It's an NFL team, so media will take shots. So that doesn't matter to me, and they don't have to. In fact, it actually kind of brings more attention if Coach Prime is out there, because 9 times out of 10, if he's just a fan, fans are saying the same thing. It's not like he's saying something that we, as a fan of the game, can't see, and fans are not. Why don't you ask about this? And if he's bold enough to say it, then he'll say it's the same thing. So,
the fans are worried about it, but then the fans want to fly planes over MetLife to get attention.
There we go.
So it's kind of crazy. I mean, it really is that weird. That's what I love talking to you about it, because I know you do the groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're boots on the ground together at training camp practices. Watching the Giants, not when they have the best players in the league, but when they're struggling and scrapping. And I think it's interesting how this whole thing has evolved to the point where this community is so polarized with who you like in the draft and what guys you may like and who may fit where. And it's just interesting that Shedeur Sanders has now become the guy stuck in the middle of the storm there in Indianapolis.
Because all you have to do, and I've done this with other things in life, if you just ask one more question, it kind of stops whatever momentum is. So when people say, for instance, like, oh man, I wish we had flying cars. Oh, that'd be cool. We fly cars. Like, okay, cool. What if you get in an accident? You know what? Flying cars would be a bad idea, right? Just one more question. So when people say, I don't want you to do it because it's off the field issues. What's the off the field issue? There is none. So where are you getting this from? And that's where we just got to ask. I tell people, just ask one more question. And if you ask people questions, not in the, I'm going to be a jerk kind of way. I'm just trying to get to where you are mentally in terms of like, where is this coming from? Let me ask, because maybe I missed something. And then you ask that question, they don't have an answer. So, it's just kind of like, it's based off social media and where we are now in terms of how we consume stuff. You got to hate something. You can't just like everything. You got to find a villain. You see this in music all the time. We grew up Biggie or Pop. I like both of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they both make great music. Exactly, right? All right, now you got Drake and Kendrick, right? So it's just, people just have the need to create a good, bad, good versus evil, villain, hero, and when both guys are really great quarterbacks.
I don't want to talk mock drafts because I know everybody knows who people think are slotted in the top 5. Because I laid it out and how you are your own man. Give me your 5, whether it's favorite, best prospects, doesn't have to be your grades. Who are the 5 guys that, you look at it and you go, you know what, if a team gets one of these guys, aces, that's going to get an A afterwards, and these guys are going to produce for as long as they do.
Shedeur and Cam, I've been on record saying no matter where they go, that team is going to the postseason, because the teams, I feel like the Titans aren't as bad as people think they are. I feel like the Browns aren't as bad as people think they are. I feel like the Giants aren't as bad as people think they are. So any one of those 3 teams get Shedeur or Cam, they're going to the postseason, because what bad quarterback play does, now you're not sustaining drives. Now your defense is out there longer than they should be, so you don't really get to see how good your defense is because they're tired. You're not putting points up on the board, so now they got to do extra beyond that. You don't know how good your receivers are because the quarterback can't get them the football. We know the Giants have talent at receiver. We just don't know that because they don't have the quarterback. So bad quarterback play pulls down all of that, right? So either way, Titans, Browns, Giants, Shedeur or Cam is fine. Abdul Carter is someone that pops up on film. He played multiple positions at Penn State. We saw him play a little bit off the ball, saw him rush the passer. Every time I look up, 11 is in the backfield. So that's a good trait to have. And Travis Hunter to me is like, if he's starting at, first of all, I think he gets started on both sides of the ball. 14. He could play both sides in the NFL like he did in college. Actually going to get a break in the NFL, because if he's just starting receivers, probably your number 3, it's 40 plays. Defense probably will get 45, 50 plays. That's 40 plays less than he played in college. And it may unlock another element of his game. return because we hadn't seen him return in college because that's when he was getting breaks. So now he can return kicks and punts. So you got that athlete going on. And if you're at corner, you're literally throwing to a wide receiver. Why are you throwing his way? He probably got better hands than receiver, so he's going to take away one half the field. Then on offense, he doesn't need volume. You don't have to feed him. He can do 5 or 6 catches a game, and he'd have 100 yards on the touchdown. Those 4 guys are locked in. Those are my guys that no matter where they go, all rookie teams.
So who's your fifth? Because we all have those names, and everyone, you feel very confident in those guys. Who's a guy who people maybe are sleeping on a little bit that you would say?
Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end. Every time I watch a Penn State game, offensive, defensively, obviously I'm talking about Carter, but offensively, the fact that they're getting this dude the football at quarterback, at H-back, at tight end, at wide receiver, the USC game, we had like 55 catches, had the snap, the trick play we snapped the ball and went right down the other. He's someone that I enjoy watching play football, and he's a fantastic player, productive player who elevated his stock this past season. I thought people thought he was a 3rd-round pick last year. I don't know how, because he was excellent last season, but this year I think everybody kind of got on board there. Tyler Warren is a fantastic player.
I think people probably take him higher too because it's almost like you're allowed now because Brock Bowers did what he did, right?
Exactly.
So now it's okay that you can take the tight end in that top 10 and not feel worried about pulling the trigger.
Imagine now you get inside the red zone. First of all, don't let Andy Reid get Tyler Warren. That's number one. Because I'm sorry they had done this with Kelsey inside the red zone, former quarterback. Now he's your wildcat guy. But Penn State actually uses Warren as the wildcat quarterback. Right. Short yardage goal line.
Was it they boxed that one though against Ohio State?
Yeah, they did.
They came in.
Right, he messed it up. But he can throw, he can catch, he can run. Like, I think those are my top.
Last one, because you've been great as always, and I know you're a busy man, busy schedule. Gun to your head, put on the thinking cap, whatever you want to say, whatever bad cliche it is. The Giants will draft
Shador Ward. I think they'll get one of those guys. Here's why I think they'll get one of those guys, because they can't trade up to Tennessee. They're going to have to come off 3 of the 5 boroughs to get up to number 1. So the Browns are a little bit more economical because the Browns have a couple of factors. We know they could go quarterback, but that front office and also coaching staff may not have the luxury or the patience from the owner. Like, we can't get y'all another rookie quarterback. Y'all get a stopgap year to figure this thing out. And so they may go vet at quarterback.
Kirk Cousins,
or Darnold, or any one of those guys. Jameis Winston could even come back. And also they still have this hanging over their heads. They have Myles Garrett on the lead. That puts Abdul Carter on the table. Like, shit, we got to replace. I'm sorry, but we got to replace him. We got to get somebody that can play. And so then you could also go to best player in Travis Hunter. So I feel like Cleveland is a little bit more willing to move down a pick. The Giants could get one of those 2 quarterbacks.
Move up and get one of those 2. And you don't have you think they're good if they go either way.
Either way, selfishly, because we out in the media market, I kind of want the Jets and Giants to get both of those dudes to make, because they both best friends and they both go at each other, and just to have the draw going back and forth from both New York teams would be fantastic for all of us involved. But I think the Giants can't go wrong with either one in this situation.
He's Emory Hunt. Tell everybody where they can find you this week and moving forward.
F-Ball Game Plan on social media. You'll see me on CBS Sports HQ. Also pre-order the Football Game Plan Draft Guide, which has over 1,000 individual scouting reports at footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide.
This is the man, Emory Hunt. I'm Art Stapleton. Thanks for being all in. We'll be back tomorrow from the Combine. All right, as I promised, interesting stuff from Emory. Like I said, I like Emory because he doesn't color between the lines. He doesn't follow groupthink. He does his own stuff, and a lot of it is in line with the groupthink, and some of it isn't. And his stuff on Shador is fantastic. If you're buying into Shador, it's great to hear that. If you don't agree with his takes, I'd say just respect it. So that's where we're at from the Combine. Tomorrow, we'll have an interview with Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. We'll have that posted as early as we can. And Travis Hunter from Colorado meets the media around 11 a.m. We'll get some video of him to include on the pod. I'll have a story on Travis Hunter on NorthJersey.com. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Thanks again to Emory Hunt. And we are all in still here in Indianapolis. Things have been so crazy here. I still don't even know what day it is. It is Wednesday. So finish it out. Appreciate you guys listening to the show. Thanks for always being all in. And we'll catch you up again on tomorrow on Thursday.